We begin with a Fox News alert, and we are awaiting President-elect Donald Trump's Secretary of State choice. And meetings, more of them, are going on at Trump Tower today. Mr. Trump is talking to House Speaker Paul Ryan this morning. He was supposed to also sit down a second time with Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. Now we're told that is actually going to happen on Monday. A lot of intrigue going on. We're bringing it to you live. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Also here today, Sandra Smith, Meghan McCain, Fox News contributor Rachel Campos-Duffy, and today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, host of Tucker Carlson Tonight. Tucker himself, and he's outnumbered.
Profoundly. But happy to be here.
This is the first time you've been on since your show?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you. This is my favorite places to be on this couch. I mean that, too. I think I was here the first day.
You were.
And it will never end, but if it ever does, I hope we're here the last day. We
had our own inauguration with you.
I loved it.
Tucker says it smells better around here.
It really does. But I know that in a moral sense. It just feels clean.
All righty. Well, we'll take our smelly selves on. Good to see you on a fine Friday. We are getting new details about President-elect Donald Trump's choice for Secretary of State. The list, as you know, is actually getting longer. And now we're learning more about whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling. But senior advisor Kellyanne Conway says the decision will ultimately come down to one man.
He met with Rex Tillerson, the head of Exxon, this week, as you know. Yesterday, Alan Mulally, the former head of Ford, was there, who obviously did a great job with that company. You've got Governor Romney, Mayor Giuliani, another General Petraeus. You have Senator Bob Corker, who probably would face easy Senate confirmation among his colleagues, who's the head of the Foreign Relations Committee. So you're just talking about a very diverse group. John Bolton, Dana Rohrabacher.
Let's rack up the latest facts on this. National security correspondent Jen Griffin is live in Washington. Always good to see you.
Hi, Harris. Well, I spoke to a source close to the president-elect, and here's what I am told. ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson, who met with Donald Trump on Tuesday, his stock is rising. He's been invited back for another meeting in the coming days, I'm told. He's an appealing pick for Donald Trump because he's run a multi-million-dollar business with a presence in 50 countries worldwide. He has had to negotiate deals in war-torn Yemen and has close ties to Russian President Vladimir Putin dating back to the Boris Yeltsin era. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, I'm told, is in, quote, hot water with Trump, despite having been one of his most loyal supporters and closest allies. After publicly pitching himself as the best pick, most recently at a Wall Street Journal business meeting in November, I'm told he could have had DHS, Department of Homeland Security. He has not been coming in or out of Trump Tower for the past 2 weeks. Then there's Mitt Romney. He is still a top contender, but there are still those around Trump who feel that the speech he gave in March outlining why Trump would be dangerous as president would loom over his time as Secretary of State. It would be reported on every time he showed up in a foreign capital. That being said, Trump and Romney reportedly had good chemistry, and he could be the one he settles on in the end. Unfortunately for General Petraeus, when Trump settled on General John Kelly for Homeland Security, choosing Petraeus for state would have made his cabinet look a bit too much like a junta, too many four-star generals. On the other hand, Trump really likes Petraeus, and I would not be surprised if they still try to find something for him. In terms of Ambassador John Bolton, I'm told, and my colleague John Roberts first reported last week, that Bolton is being considered for the number 2 position at state. Congressman Dana Rohrabacher is also being considered for that. And don't forget Senator Bob Corker, who Kellyanne Conway herself said would have an easy confirmation. And finally, Ford CEO Alan Mulally, he's still being considered for the top spot, we're told. Back to you.
Jennifer, thank you very much. Tucker, let's unpack that a little bit and start with Rex Tillerson and his close ties to Vladimir Putin, Russian president. Is that a pro or a con?
First of all, he's coming on the junta, which is hilarious. I mean, in a junta, the generals are in charge, and presumably we're still going to have civilian control of all the agencies in the military. Probably not a concern at this point. I mean, the thing to know about the Secretary of State job is that it has changed over the past 8 years, and climate is a huge part of it. It was a focus at the State Department, it was a focus at the Pentagon, it was a focus at all the federal agencies. And so one of the tasks of this administration will be to assess the deals and the positions the Obama people have made on climate and to either unravel them or pursue them or whatever. And so to even consider a guy like Tillerson, I think it's sending a pretty big statement that we're not on the same page.
I hear all of that, but some of the criticism for Donald Trump leading up to the election were ties with Putin. This guy has ties with Putin, and I ask again, pros and cons, irrespective of the climate change.
It's very hard for me to, I mean, if you're asking my personal opinion, I have a lot of trouble taking that seriously. I mean, what does that mean? So obviously, Russia is one of the biggest energy producers in the world. This guy runs the world's biggest energy company. So having to, well, of course he has ties with the Russian government and with the government of Equatorial Guinea and the government of Nigeria and the government of Mexico and all the energy producing countries around the world. So like, nothing burger, I guess that's my first, unless there's something we don't know, unless he hacks Podesta's emails. Is that the allegation?
Like, my goodness.
I think the point is when you say ties, it sounds like you have negative implications in there. And as Tucker's pointing out, he's the head of one of the largest energy companies on the planet. If he didn't have relations with Russia, one of the largest energy producers on the planet, he wouldn't be doing his job.
Yeah. I look at some of the energy concerns, though, between Russia flexing its muscle over Ukraine. So that's why I asked the question. So let's move on and talk about Mitt Romney. And, I mean, a rival does that, right? They talk smack. They throw shade. Is this a shocker that Mitt Romney said some things about Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised that he's still in the running, considering, I mean, I went back and listened to what he said in that speech, and it was pretty bad. What I find interesting about this whole process, Harris, is that, I mean, he's obviously not just going to pay somebody back for having helped him on the campaign. He's looking at people and looking at who's best for it. And look, there's a lot of work to be done at the State Department because, frankly, our position in the world has really declined under Obama, and we need somebody who's going to project strengths in the world. And frankly, if you ask me, I still like Rudy Giuliani. And the fact that he is not entering in and out of Trump Towers, what does that mean? I mean, he can pick up the phone and call Donald Trump. I mean, one of the strengths that Rudy Giuliani has is that he knows Donald Trump so well. So I still think that's a great pick.
Yeah. So, Megan, you've talked this week about who you like for this. Are any surprises on the rising and lowering stock of some?
Just that there are more CEOs being added to the list. I like the traditional role. It's our biggest diplomat globally. I like someone who has more experience. I was a huge General Petraeus fan, as you know. I like Mitt Romney as a choice, but I also rewatched that Hinckley speech. I forgot how tough it was, and the image of Mitt Romney going and talking to maybe, a country we have a contentious relationship with, and them being like, but you said Donald Trump would be a dangerous president. How about them apples? Like, yeah, that's a conflict of interest. From the, sort of screwed up entertainment side of this, which, yes, I'm getting entertainment from this, Rudy Giuliani, I mean, he was a huge supporter. Chris Christie, huge loyal supporters throughout the entire campaign. Took so many hits for being early supporters, and they get nothing. It's kind of entertaining.
I wonder, Tucker, how important chemistry is for Donald Trump with his pick. I mean, you can sit here and talk about qualifications all day long, but I mean, so many of these people we just put up on the screen are qualified. You could make the case for the job. How important is it for him to, I mean, he's looking at CEOs in addition to Tillerson. Alan Mullally's one of them, the former head of Ford and Boeing. Is that
I think it's enormously important for Trump, maybe more than with most presidents. Trump is non-ideological, so he's not going through a checklist of do you believe this, do you believe that. Obviously, I mean, you look at the roster of picks that his own transition team have said are under consideration, not just made up by the media. They have very little in common with one another in terms of what they believe or in their records. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that's clearly those are not the criteria he's using. So do I get along with this person? Is he impressive? Those seem to me like the measures he's using.
What do you think about the process? Because I know there's been criticism, and I guess the left will always criticize the other side for taking too long or moving too fast. But this is, if you look historically, kind of how it's gone. In fact, maybe even faster paced. What do you think about the process?
I mean, I don't know. It needs
to. Does it matter?
Look, there are 2,800 different executive branch appointees that this president-elect is going to have to come up with, and a lot of them need clearances. I mean, so the top level is not maybe as significant as we imagine it is. What about all these other guys? I mean, that's what I would be looking at. I think their pace seems fine. Get good people. That's maybe the point.
Any final thoughts on this?
No, I think, again, I like the process. I like that it's kind of it's open, and that we're seeing, and it doesn't feel like a backroom deal. It feels like he's really interviewing and finding out who is the best candidate. And again, surprising that Giuliani is on the outs or whatever, if that's true or not. I believe that he's going to pick the best person for the job.
Again, because I keep comparing to The Bachelor, Giuliani was really thirsty and desperate. I mean, he was petitioning himself, pick me, because again, this is like The Bachelor, and I'm looking forward to more one-on-one dates. tickets. I hope Rex Tiller. Hope he takes us to a nice restaurant.
All right.
It is thirsty. Pick me, pick me. Nobody likes that. Come on.
Only ex-boyfriends. Let's move on. Hillary Clinton now calling on Congress to help rein in so-called fake news. There's a lot of it out there, which she says is a threat to our democracy. But who should decide what news is legitimate? And didn't Hillary Clinton punish the false narrative about a YouTube video, or push rather, causing the Benghazi attack? What happened to the facts there? And new questions about conflict of interest. Ooh, money, 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 money. As President-elect Trump reportedly plans to keep his executive producer title on NBC's Celebrity Apprentice. We'll debate it ahead. Rock it out.
Something going on this set. President-elect Trump won't be appearing on the new season of The Celebrity Apprentice next month on the show when he takes office. No word on exactly how much he'll be paid or if he'll be paid at all, but critics say it could be a conflict of interest for both Mr. Trump and NBC, since they have a news division covering his presidency. A former ethics czar for President Obama saying, quote, Trump will be tempted, consciously or otherwise, to favor NBC or use the White House to promote this source of revenue. It is one more example of why he must divest all his interests into a blind trust or the equivalent, with these broadcast-related rights monetized and sold to someone else. Meantime, Trump senior advisor Kellyanne Conway dismissing questions about whether the executive producer job would interfere with Mr. Trump's presidential duties. Watch this.
Were we so concerned about the hours and hours and hours spent on the golf course of the current president? I mean, presidents have a right to do things in their spare time or their leisure time, whether it's President Obama or President Donald Trump. The idea that these men are going to be all work and nothing else all the time, it's just unrealistic, because it's never happened in our lifetime.
Okay, so Tucker, she's kind of putting it out to be it's an extracurricular activity, for a leisure activity.
Let's just pause and note the hilarity.
Okay.
I mean, I'm totally, on many levels. First, does this mean NBC's been flacking for Trump this whole time? You know, they've been promoting him and his candidacy from day one.
Right.
Such is the nature of these conflicts. Right. I believe, truly, with no evidence, but I can just tell that Trump devotes at least an hour a day to figuring out how to offend people in power. Basically, I think he does a lot of these things just to kind of, you know, show them that he's not playing along, and just to kind of tweak their sensibilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite obvious that this was going to raise...
critic on NBC. Yeah. I think it's a riot.
You think it's a riot, but do you think it's going to fly? Do you think that that's okay?
There's so many potential conflicts for Trump. I mean, there's so many.
Okay, this one.
This is the funniest of them all. No, I mean, I don't think he should. No, if I were giving him counsel, and obviously I'm not, but I would say, no, come on now.
So then I guess people find themselves asking, even if you're very supportive of Trump and always have been, saying, well, wait, why? Knowing this is going to not look good, why do it?
Well, I think the American public, statistically, I know actually, that they don't have a problem with his business dealings. It's not like we went into this blind, not knowing that he still is running major businesses. He's still an executive producer on a hit show that's been around for more than 10 years. He's just getting money off of it. He's not hosting it anymore. If I were him, I would take the money from The Apprentice and I would give it to charity, preferably a veterans charity, and move on. Because, again, I think asking him to sort of come off of this hit show that he helped build is a little ridiculous. And he's been going after Saturday Night Live ardently on Twitter and in the media, talking about what a horrible show it is. It's a marquee show for NBC. I just think the idea that NBC is going to start being nice to Donald Trump is pretty delusional.
Okay, Rachel?
Yeah. Listen, I think it's silly. I think he should not be the executive producer of this reality show. It's dumb. You're the president of the United States. You really need that title of executive producer of The Apprentice. I think it's silly. I think you had to let it go. There's plenty of work to be done. And one of the things I liked about Trump was when he said, I'm not going to take vacations. I'm going to devote myself entirely to this job. And now that, you know, whether it's a hobby or like golf or whatever, I don't want him to do that. I want him to do his job. And he doesn't need it. It's stupid.
Well, you know, one of the things that his supporters really liked about him was his independence. And you cannot be independent if you are an executive producer on a show that's content driven by reality, unscripted. So it means whatever comes up, you've got to be judging character at that moment. You've got to be engaged at that moment with that title. And the main goal is to win. win in the ratings. And so I think that stifles your independence.
It's another host. It's a new host. Is he going to care as much? I think he gets paid
I can't
either
say
way.
how much he's going to care, but if he collects...
Are you talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger?
His job is to help that show win.
Well, plus he's got a new reality show now.
That's exactly right. So deal with this new reality TV show. And you're right, Harris. It does matter to him. He cares about the brand of that, and he
wants to win.
It's so funny that of all the people on this couch that care, I do not care about this.
Wow.
I just think, again, if you're gonna get wet, you might as well go swimming. He's keeping his businesses all across the country. He has ties to, he's allegedly building something in Taiwan. I mean, we know who this man is. The American public had their eyes open when they voted for him. I think he just wanted. He's gonna get a paycheck either way. He conceived of this show. I actually have no problem with this. He should take ownership of the hit TV show that helped get him elected president. Just give that money to a veterans charity.
But by the way, I'm the only one on this couch who was on a reality TV show.
Oh, that's true.
So
Fair enough.
I think you ought to let it go.
Wait, hold on a second. There was another reality TV show.
I'm not admitting that. Come on.
I
was on a skills-based contest.
Tucker was on Dancing with the Stars. Dancing with the Stars.
So when we have music like that, when we go to commercial, I mean, you got to work that out.
Oh my gosh, Harris. Okay, move on.
Hillary Clinton calling on lawmakers in Congress last night to address the dangers of fake news circulating online, saying it's a threat to our democracy. Watch.
It's now clear that so-called fake news can have real-world consequences. This isn't about politics or partisanship. Lives are at risk. It's a danger that must be addressed, and addressed quickly. Bipartisan legislation is making its way through Congress to boost the government's response to foreign propaganda, and Silicon Valley is starting to grapple with the challenge and threat of fake news.
While she didn't address the incident, this comes after a man recently fired a shot in a Washington, D.C. pizza place that was tied to conspiracy theories online linked to Clinton, known as Pizzagate. Meantime, top Facebook executive Sheryl Sandberg says they're going to be making every effort to keep fake news off their site. So, Tucker, I'm going to go to you. Obviously, you think of Benghazi. You think of the YouTube video that she created that was a total lie. Said that was a total lie, which was the reason for the Benghazi attack. I also think of President Clinton saying it depends on the definition of what is.
Sure.
They've been distorting reality for decades.
Well, they're politicians. They lie, of course. So the hypocrisy angle is, ripe. But what's the threat here? Is the threat that somehow Americans are so dumb they're going to have their minds controlled by foreign propagandists in Moldova? Or is the real threat that our government is going to decide it's in the business of classifying some information as news and some as verboten? We're going to take steps in the Congress to filter out fake. Are you joking?
Yeah.
This is a direct threat to the First Amendment. I'm not defending inaccurate material online. There's a lot of it, but I'm an adult and I can tell the difference, or I think I can. Or in any case, I don't want some politician deciding they're going to filter my news because they think some of it's fake. I mean, whoa, bells are going off.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Facebook is saying they're going to hire somebody to do this. So it's not just in the government and these big social media platforms that we get our news from. And 80% of people said, I can figure this out on my own. And they polled people, and they said they don't want anyone
have those
filtering
statistics,
it out.
actually.
Yeah.
Up 81%.
Yeah.
So people are confident that they can distinguish between real news and fake news.
Yeah, well, and I mean, Facebook has had its own issues anyway with, the conservative filter that they had and some of the news tilting one way toward the left, so on and so forth. But, just to note, and I love what you said pause and note the hilarity. So a couple of hours ago, on one of the Alphabet Soup networks, it's got a lot of letters in the network, their anchor was reading about a Christmas party coming up and said, think about the hotel in Washington now. Does he, Mr. Trump, need to be eating only in Trump restaurants, staying only in a Trump hotel? The RNC is having their Christmas party at the Trump Hotel in Washington, this person says. Fox News is having their Christmas party there, too. Doesn't that feel a little hanky? No, what it feels like is that it's not true. Yeah. And the party hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
It happens at the liaison. I mean, you're in D.C. a lot. Have you gone to the party yet?
We're having a Christmas party for my show tonight at a bar across the street, Langens.
Yeah.
That's insane, right?
My point is that there's a lot of information out there that needs massaging back into the truth zone. Sometimes we get our facts bent, we get them wrong, we you know, there is fake news, so on and so forth, that statistic speaks highly.
But this is a call for censorship. I mean, let's not mince words here. This is a politician with a vested interest in only some information reaching you as a consumer, reader, or viewer, saying, we're going to control what you read or hear.
Right.
What, that is totally out of bounds.
So what would the government want to do about this fake news story then?
I was just saying, it's about controlling thought, but it's also about Hillary Clinton making excuses for why she lost.
Right.
I mean, this is also part of it as well.
Yeah, she should.
Because her case is that it affected the outcome of the election.
Correct.
She hasn't exactly made that case very well.
Well, I think she should stick to taking weird selfies in the forest. Stop talking.
I like that.
High time, just taking weirdo selfies. High times on Wall Street. The Dow setting record after record since President-elect Trump won the election. So what do the wealthy members of his cabinet have to do with it? Plus, Mr. Trump promising to bring jobs for millions of Americans. But what about better wages? A new report has a rough forecast for the American dream.
Fox News alert, we are keeping an eye on Wall Street and the possibility of yet another record for the American stock market. Look at the Dow right now at 53 points, approaching that 20,000 mark at 19,667. A lot of people watching this. And yesterday marked the Dow's 13th record close since Election Day. And some are now wondering whether the surge has anything to do with Mr. Trump's cabinet picks, many of whom have had financial success and could signal deregulation moves are coming. 4 members of his administration are billionaires. The wealthiest, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, worth more than $5 billion. And Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin tops the list of millionaires with $40 million. During his victory rally speech in Iowa last night, Mr. Trump defended his decision to make these hires.
I want people that made a fortune because now they're negotiating with you. Okay? It's no different than a great baseball player or a great golfer. I mean, we want the people that are going to bring, and they're so proud to do it. These people have given up fortunes of income in order to make $1 a year. And they're so proud to do it. And you watch what's going to happen. It's going to happen fast, too.
All right, well, there are some, Tucker, that say, well, those billionaires by his side is giving them confidence that these are people who know business and they know that rolling back regulations and lowering taxes is going to be great for our economy, and that's leading to the stock market rally. But then there's critics who say, how can these guys really be in touch with the working class voters that elected Trump?
Yeah, I guess I would just make 2 obvious points. I do think the Mnuchin pick is a little weird, to pick a Goldman guy after running against Wall Street. Wall Street did support Donald Trump, not at all. I mean, I don't think anybody on Wall Street supported Donald Trump. So I don't fully understand that pick, actually. But then the macro point is, okay, so there's this great stock market rally, which is good. It's better than, obviously, a downturn. But you're still seeing declining life expectancy in America's middle class. This election was a cry for help and also an extended middle finger from America's middle class. And so there's not a direct connection between how the markets do and how that group fares. And so it leaves unanswered the question, what do you do to restore the fortunes of the middle of the country?
And right now, it's probably considered a pretty good start to see our stock market thriving in just the 4 weeks since he was elected.
I know the economy crashed right before Obama was elected, but did Wall Street and the Dow have this kind of enthusiasm after his election? Do you remember?
Historically, you do get a bit of a bounce after a presidential election, and it's Democrat or Republican. But this is like nothing we've seen in recent history.
I mean, maybe it has to do with his Wall Street picks, but I am going to be more impressed if he keeps holding this after the first 100 days in office.
But fair enough question, though, because now a lot of people are saying this is still Obama's economy and a reflection of Obama's economy. He has been president for 8 years.
This isn't even about his picks, although I think the picks show that this is a results-driven administration that we're going to be seeing here. But this is about Trump. This is about somebody who absolutely understands the effect of regulations more than tax reform. Getting rid of these onerous regulations is going to create jobs. And the American dream is alive. And it's just being strangled right now by regulations, and it's resilient. And when you release all this pent-up energy that we see right now, I think we're going to see this bump, and it's going to last.
I spoke to a financial advisor this morning, Harris, who told me that they are seeing the enthusiasm from Main Street with this stock market rally. That doesn't always happen. When you have a stock market rally as a result of low interest rates, like we have seen the past several years, that doesn't necessarily get Main Street excited, but they are jumping in wanting to participate participate in this rally.
All right, so the Fed's getting ready to meet next week, and we're anticipating that they're going to raise by a quarter point, and they may do it 2 to 3 times over the next few months, which means if you're going to lock in and get a house, you might want to do that, you know, sooner rather than later. But I want to get back to what Tucker was saying, because I'm fascinated by this idea of what people feel rather than what they see. Right? I mean, isn't that what we're looking at? We're looking at these numbers, and we've been looking at numbers all along, and some of the numbers have shown, you know, a lower unemployment across the country. But when you ask people generally how they feel, it's so incongruous to what we see.
Well, ask them how much money they have. I mean, the Treasury Department asked, the Labor Department rather asked last year, can you scrape up $400 within 24 hours without selling something? And half the country couldn't. So clearly there's a lot of money out there. No one's contesting that. It could go to 30,000. Maybe it will. And it wouldn't necessarily solve the problem, which is massive inequality. I'm not a lefty. I'm a pro-market guy. But if you have a massively unequal distribution of wealth, you have an unstable society. I'm not saying it's immoral. I'm just saying it doesn't work in the democracy. And we need to fix that.
And I live in small-town America, and I've talked to many of the business owners, and they're excited about this. They understand what this is going to do to their businesses. So I think this is sustainable, and it's not just Wall Street. I think it's going to trickle down to Main Street and impact this.
You know what? Let's somewhat stay right here, because as we see the stock market surge, a new study with some pretty grim news for the American dream, which Rachel just brought up moments ago. Researchers at Harvard, Stanford, and the University of California compiled tax and census data, and this is what they found. The percentage of people who make more than their parents did by around age 30 has plummeted over the years. 90% of people born in 1940 did better than their parents by age 30. By 1960, that number had dropped to 60%. And for people who were born around 30, now only half make more than their parents did at their age. All of this, of course, is adjusted for inflation, but we haven't seen all that much recently. So what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I mean, part of it is to be expected. The country was industrialized over the last 100 years, and so there was just a lot of work, and there was a massive increase in life expectancy and standard of living, because that's what happens when you go from an agrarian economy to a mechanized economy, right? So, but it's still ominous. Yeah. It's still ominous if people feel, because again, it's not just the whole country is stalled. The top percentiles are actually richer than they've ever been. Everyone's got a plane. And I'm not attacking rich people. I'm merely saying everyone looks at that on TV and says, I'm excluded from that deal, and it makes the country volatile. That's the point.
Look at all those millions of Bernie supporters.
Exactly.
Bernie Sanders supporters.
Right.
You know what? What about this idea, though? Maybe it's not all the economy. Maybe it's a change in perception about what success really looks like. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, the American dream depends on, and a country that is prosperous because people can achieve their American dreams, is about risk-taking. And so when people feel optimistic, I mean, we had a community organizer running our country. We now have a businessman, a very successful businessman, who has now peopled his cabinet with other successful businessmen and women. So I think this is just, people are going to be optimistic. There is pent-up energy for free enterprise and for American dreams.
I think you can't underestimate the depression among millennials right now. Just everything from student loans on down. These statistics also, it's the highest in the Midwest, specifically with males. I mean, that's why Donald Trump won this election. And ever since Donald Trump rose to power, I've been reading as many books as I can to try and figure out exactly where this started and why this started. And the statistics about how many young men in this country in the Midwest that are on prescription medication, that have over 6 hours of leisure time during the day because they can't find employment. I mean, it is stark and staggering. And I know what it feels like because, again, I have friends that, haven't really done so well in the Obama years. And to have the outlook of an entire generation that the last generation not only did a bad job, but basically has screwed this generation over, and that this future doesn't look so bright, I'm telling you, it's one of the main reasons why Donald Trump got elected.
And I won't get too wonky on you, but because Harris, I know you don't like that.
No, I love
I'm teasing with you.
Man, for goodness
sake. Numbers. Let's talk wages. I don't think anybody's even really dropped the word yet. This Raj Chetty, Stanford University economist, say it's wages. Wages have stagnated in the middle class. When you're in that situation, it becomes very hard for children to do better than their parents. They haven't moved. removed. I mean, it's been years, and that's a huge problem for the young working American.
But you're also strapped with student loans from college because the likelihood of you getting a job if you don't have a college education, the statistics are staggering on it. To make less money if you don't have a college education, your future doesn't look as bright. So, like, you have this catch-22 because you're basically forced to go to college and strapped with all these loans, but then when you get out, the jobs aren't there.
Right. So look at the adjustment that, and remember back the adjustments that both Clinton and Trump made in late summer to talk about the issue of student loans. I remember that, and I thought, whoa, is that coming out of the blue, or is that about Bernie supporters who are angry? What is that? And so my question for you, Sandra, would be,
don't make it too hard.
What? Make it too hard. Come on, you're one of the smartest people I know. Stop it. I know it's Friday.
He's sitting on the other side of you.
But what about Donald Trump's policies do you think meet this conversation?
He's not president yet. So right now it's the talk and the anticipation of rolling back regulations that have stifled business. It's the talk of tax reform, lowering taxes, lowering corporate taxes. All of that is playing a part, but I will tell you that I am a little bit concerned about how fast that stock market has been rising in anticipation of him going into office, because then what happens? He has to, A, live up to all that. I'm not saying that he won't, but stock markets have a history of sort of going up. They say, buy the rumor, sell the fact. Not this is a rumor, but it could go up into the fact that he becomes the president, and you could sometimes get a sell-off. That is what I have talked to a lot of Wall Streeters about. That is a concern that
buy the rumor, sell the fact.
And going back to you talking about interest rates, if interest rates all start rising, what happens then?
Well, there's going to be I mean, what's the level of personal debt the average person under 40 is carrying? It's not just student loans, it's credit card debt. No one ever mentions credit cards. It's so enormous, there's such an overhang with that. Oh,
we got into the deep end of the ocean there. The water's warm, baby. All right, we have heard plenty about safe spaces for liberal college students in the aftermath of President-elect Donald Trump's victory. But what about Trump supporters? Students at one school who voted for the winner are saying they feel their views are being denigrated. Now they want a safe space. Should they get it? Or is that hypocritical? Stay close.
Well, college kids who want safe spaces at school. Now Trump supporters reportedly want them too. The New York Times spoke with students at the University of Michigan who voted for Trump, and they said that the canceling of classes after the election and the offers of counseling for their traumatized liberal classmates made them feel like their views aren't respected. One of them telling the Times, quote, "Nobody has died. The United States has not died. Democracy is more alive than ever. Simply put, the American people voted and Trump won." So, Tucker, are the conservative students right to demand the same kind of sympathy as the liberals? They also want safe spaces and whatnot.
I mean, I guess the technical term would be wuss move. This is. I mean, like,
do you think they're being sarcastic, or do you think they really want it?
It's possible. It's possible. But the whole point of voting for Trump is that you disapprove of things like safe spaces.
Right.
I wish someone, instead of demanding their own equal safe space, would stand up and just kind of call the bluff of the commissars who are enforcing this stuff through name-calling and fear, and just saying you can't actually defend your position rationally. You have no real case. All you do is compare your opponents to Hitler and try to make them be quiet. And I'm not going to take it. And here's what I believe. And why don't you explain what you believe? And they can't, because they actually don't know what they believe. And so make a real argument. That's what works.
Yeah, but, you know, you were probably the one who was in college the most recent. I know a lot.
Spaces didn't exist when I was in college, by the way.
True, but I bet liberal bias did. And I would say I know a lot of college kids who say, I just keep my mouth shut. I don't want to tell anybody what I feel because they're afraid they're going to get not just a grade deduction for it, but, you know, called a racist for, you know, having a Trump sticker on the back of their book or something.
In my entire 4 years at Columbia, I knew one other Republican. One, the entire time I was there. And I don't know if it's just because, again, young people are sort of indoctrinated in college or it's a liberal school. I have no idea. But I will say that you can't want a safe space yourself. I'm against the concept of safe spaces. Life isn't a safe space. And I think what turned me into a conservative was having to defend my views, to defend my family, and defend my brother deploying during the Iraq War to a bunch of people who had no idea about the real world around them. And it makes you stronger. So I agree with Tucker that if you want to be smarter, stronger, tougher, don't ask for a safe space, combat it front to front.
Tucker, you talked to so many of these young people on your show. Well, I mean, the times I've caught you had some fierce debates. What would you tell someone to do that is a Republican at this university who feels offended? I mean, What are parents supposed to tell their kids to do if they feel...
Again, call the bluff of the people doing it and say, what exactly is the point? Do you really don't believe that people ought to have a spirited public debate?
Yeah.
You don't believe in the First Amendment? You're against freedom of speech? Really?
Yeah.
Why? And press the point rationally. They can't defend their position. That's why they call you Hitler. So you'll be quiet.
Can they call you? Can you call in?
I actually think they melt when the sunlight is turned on them.
True.
But legitimately, young kids have social media. Tweet Tucker's show. Tweet me. You want to make your professor famous? Want to make anybody who's harassing you for being a Trump supporter? It can happen. I mean, there's power in this. You don't have to just sit back.
But isn't it time that we start demanding diversity of political thought at universities? I mean, there's diversity of everything: race,
That's
gender,
an interesting
religion.
thought.
I mean,
all right.
Why not?
As many conversations as we have about racial and gender diversity, why not diversity of thought?
Right.
Number one. And why doesn't that already exist on our universities? I mean, how can these kids...
It does in some universities. It doesn't happen in a lot of... It does in some. It doesn't happen in a lot of...
But you mentioned Columbia, for instance,
I
and
went
it is
to
here in New York.
debatably the most liberal school in the world, so...
Well, but I mean, there are colleges that are predominantly black colleges. But you do have a diversity of thought on those college campuses.
I think it's time for parents to be better consumers of higher education, and we should reward those schools that are fair and just.
And monitors of it.
But there's no diversity. I mean, there are more non-black students on Howard's campus than there are conservatives at Columbia. So there's literally no diversity at all. It's uniformity.
He's outnumbered and he gets the last word. All right, Hollywood continuing to lash out over Donald Trump's victory last month. One famous TV creator even putting his career on hold to fight the president-elect's proposed policies. Is this getting out of control, and is it time for liberals to finally accept the election results?
More in just a moment. Let's go to John Scott with what's coming up in the second hour of Tasty happening now. Good to see you.
Harris, next hour news on the President-elect Donald Trump transition. A potential new pick for the Interior Department as speculation ramps up about the Secretary of State job. It comes as we await a speech from Mr. Trump in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Plus a fond farewell to an American hero, John Glenn. We'll talk with fellow astronaut Gene Cernan. And a new warning out about the dangers of vaping. That's a head-on happening now. And Harris, it's Friday, so take it easy on poor Tucker. Okay?
Oh, that's no fun. Good to see you. Have a great weekend.
See ya.
Good luck, Tucker.
Thank you, Harris.
The reaction to the election of Donald Trump in La La Land. House of Cards creator Beau Willimon putting his career on hold to apparently focus on fighting the proposed policies of President-elect Trump. Willimon founded the Action Group Network in response to the election, which aims to hook people up with groups that promote causes they embrace. Meanwhile, a Hollywood PR company canceling its star-studded holiday parties, saying many people in their diverse workplace felt under assault following Trump's victory. The firm says it will donate that money to groups like Planned Parenthood and the Immigrant Defense Fund. So this PR company is Sunshine Sachs. They represent Leonardo DiCaprio. Guess who Leonardo DiCaprio is meeting with? One Donald Trump to talk about the environment, whatever else Leonardo DiCaprio wants.
Look, when your YouTube video gets 60 million views, that's, at least that's what I've read, that's about how many people voted for either one of the candidates. I think you got to talk to that person, and that would be Leo, because I mean his video is on fire right now. So I think it fits. I think it continues the conversation. Does this mean that Donald Trump really is bipartisan minded, Tucker? He's laughing at me.
There's only one thing.
By the way, it's called Before the Flood.
There's only one thing to say to Leonardo DiCaprio, which is, if you believe global warming is an existential threat to the world, then we need to reduce carbon emissions. You may not fly in a private plane.
Under
any circumstance. No, it actually gets that, because here's why. They're not discussing science. DiCaprio's not a scientist. None of these people are. They have all sociology degrees. They're making a moral case. It's substituted Christianity as the national religion among rich people, that we are destroying the earth, and we're therefore immoral. And if you don't buy into it, you're a bad person. You're a denier. Okay, you want to frame it in moral terms? Fine. Abide by those terms. Flying in a private plane disqualifies you from this conversation.
That he goes on every summer.
Your new best friend friend on the end of the couch has something to say.
Well, I'm still trying to get over, like, the canceling of Christmas parties because of Trump. I mean, talk about the Grinch. And what's with the Planned Parenthood for gifts instead? I mean, it's just gross. It's totally gross. And it shows how completely disconnected they are from middle America. This is like crazy cuckoo town stuff if you're living in Wisconsin.
I love Hollywood hysteria, though. So good.
Yeah.
So good.
It has been fun to watch. It's true.
That's payback for all the harassment Republicans get. I lived in L.A. I told you, year and a half. The harassment conservatives get in that town is unseemly. I love it. I hope they're all freaking out and crying and have a horrible Christmas.
So you drink liberal tears like wine?
I love it.
Oh,
as Harris knows, I have a cold, dark heart. I love it.
Wow. How do I know? You're like a muffin to me. You're so sweet.
I said it before, and you were like, no.
I have the song from Frozen in my head, Let It Go, because I just think we need to play. I don't know that they're ever going to accept the outcome of this election, Tucker.
I mean, but like in the end, here's the good news. This election may force liberals to articulate what they actually believe.
Yeah.
You say Trump is right. Okay, so you want open borders? Is that what you're saying? Like, make the case to me. Maybe you can convince me. Maybe we need open borders. I don't know. Tell me what you think. And they haven't had to. Maybe now they will.
Maybe if they got their emails hacked, we would know. Because didn't we learn about open borders with the Clinton campaign from the hacked emails?
They're for it. Yeah.
Or maybe not even hacked, I guess. Some of them were obtained in other ways.
Well, clearly they're not in the holiday spirit right now.
No.
All right.
Unseemly.
I love it. I don't care. Have a horrible Christmas, Hollywood.
We want to thank Tucker Carlson for your time because you've got this huge new show at 7.
It was like the best time I spent all week.
Amazing to have you. Your show, Tucker Carlson Tonight, airs Monday through Friday, and we promise it is always lively, to say the least. I don't have to make that promise. It is unbelievable, and it's doing so well, Tucker.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. One of our originals.
Yes.
Yeah, I was the original. I was the first guy.
The first day. Yeah.
That's a brag.
Always good to have you. All right, we'll let you go. You got a lot of work to do. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for being here. We are back on TV Monday at noon Eastern. Happening Now starts right